via the DUCC website if you want to go back and reference this. So just for you to know that when we're talking today. A reminder about if you have any questions, since this is our business day, you may have questions. It's best to put them into the chat box so that whoever's presiding over that side of the part of the meeting can keep track of the questions and respond to them. We will have discussion times in smaller groups today to discuss business items. I hope you've all had a chance to read all of our business pages. They start on page 9 with the reports, and they go all the way to, I think it's 26 or something. I have noted down the places where there are business action items for the Barb Elliot Trust Fund on page 9 and 10. For the Kauffman Fund on page 11, and there are several other pieces. Our agenda for today is that we'll start with music with Heather, we'll do business, we'll have our closing worship together, and gratitudes for all of those who helped make this gathering in 2020 happen. I'll just pass this over then now to Heather Robbins. You better unmute though, Heather, so that we can hear you.
Okay, never-ending joy. Never-ending joy, never-ending joy, never-ending joy.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, so now is the time that we enter into our most favorite part of every DUCC national gathering, and it's the time of business. Just as a reminder, my name is Vicki McPhee, and I am the chair of the coordinating committee. The coordinating committee is made up of the chair of the communications cluster, which is Lori Crocker. We have the DUCC treasurer, and who is Helen Reed. We have a rep to DUCC, who also happens to be the president of DUCC, Ted Dodd. We have Marlene Britton, and who is a member at large. we have Denise Davis Taylor, who is our secretary and will be taking minutes from this portion of the meeting. And we have, I feel like I've forgotten somebody, but I'm moving my way across the country as we check it. And of course we have Eric Sue King, who is our staff person that does some of the work for us in relation to general counsel and also convening the different working groups and helping out with that. Just so you know, we're going to move through worship in such a way that is going to leave 30 minutes at the end of our gathering for worship. So if I keep looking at the time, it's to keep myself and to keep us moving in such a way that we can give our full attention to worship at my time. It would be 11:30 in the morning. So our business time, we're going to look at our finances, and then from there we're going to also address our purpose and the DUCC purpose, and I'll speak to that in a minute. I know a few people sent in some questions. Then Ted Dodd's going to talk about nominations. We're going to hear from the Kauffman Fund about a motion or a request, and also from the Barb Elliot Trust Fund. And then we have a presentation at the end of our business time together from the archives. And that will take our business time this morning. Obviously, we're not in person and it's very hard to have a discussion. It's also very hard to do consensus decision-making in the way that we would prefer to. And so if decisions need to be made, or if a question rises that we want a decision, we'll be using negative consensus, which means that we'll open the lines and you'll have a certain amount of time to voice your thoughts. You can also be making comments in the chat room, and I'll do my best to keep an eye on the chat. And I keep pointing over here because it's on my other monitor. But if I forget something or something seems critical and I haven't lifted it up, please unmute yourself and just raise that point. When you go into your breakout rooms, you can take notes either with your chat in the breakout rooms, or if somebody could take notes however they want to and then email them to me, that would be great. We're not going to be asking a report in from 15 groups. Our business time doesn't allow for that this morning. Remember, when you're in your breakout rooms, once you leave your breakout room, you lose that small room chat. And so what we discovered yesterday is that if you highlight the whole chat, right click and copy, you can put it onto a Word document before you leave the breakout room. And yeah, and Linda Clark reminds us there's a reaction, so it shows a clapping hand or a thumbs up. So that way, because I can't see, obviously I can't see everybody's boxes. And so in just a moment, I'm going to ask Helen to walk us through the finances, so you can find that in your package. She's also going to do a screen share, I think, but sometimes you can't make the document big enough for, I don't know about you, but it's a truth that your eyes change after a certain point in time. And so if you need your document open somewhere else, then go for that. I had a moment yesterday where I wrote one thing that I didn't mean in the email out, and I had said that we had changed the DUCC purpose, or we had updated it, and I had misspoken. In reviewing everything, all the decision making from the fall onward into January, I realized that we didn't change the DUCC purpose, but we changed how we were going to look at the budget in relation to the DUCC purpose. So a couple of people emailed and said, how is this different from what's on the website? Or how is this different from what we've seen before? It's not. So those of you that were paying close attention, congratulations, you passed. But it is work that has been done from those of us that gathered in Chicago following World Diaconia. We 30 or 35 of us stayed in Chicago and had a national gathering there in 2017. And there were a number of issues that came up in that discussion or that meeting about what does it mean for us to gather as diaconal people? What does it mean to support one another as diaconal people? What does it mean to learn about diaconia, our history? What does it mean to be advocates for ourselves and for others in different areas of the church, whether it's our own congregations, our regions, as it turns out now, our denomination, and beyond. And so we brought a lot of questions from the 2017 gathering to the Winnipeg gathering. And we had a lot of discussion around, again, what is our identity and what do we want to focus on beyond planning the meeting? What is the work of the DUCC community beyond gathering in person? What work do we do in between those gatherings? And so that informed then the next our next year and a half of our coordinating committee of what we wanted to spend time and energy on creating, upholding, letting go. And so from that, we looked at our purpose and realized that if we started to change our purpose, the wording of our purpose, we were just going to be moving words around. There was another reason to be looking at our purpose, and that was to support Helen in her work as our treasurer in the documents that were required by CRA. You know, what does it mean to have a donation? What does it mean to have membership? And so that, again, was creating questions around how do we create our budget? And then what do we do with our budget? How do we walk our talk? How do we live out the ideals that we want to, that we ascribe to in our purpose? And so then we began asking ourselves questions about where we saw ourselves living out our purpose. And so Helen is going to walk us through the financial statements and then going to walk through the 4-year budget. And then from there, we have some questions for you. Then we're going to break you into breakout rooms, of which then I'll give further instruction then. So now I'll pass it over to Helen to present our financial statements.
Thanks, Vicki. So I began doing this treasurer thing in 2017, towards the end of 2016. And we go sort of on a 4-year budget. So I'm getting past my first 4 years, people. How exciting is that? And it's really interesting because every one of those years in the cycle is slightly different. So I'm hoping that I will at least be able to know what I'm doing as we move forward. So what I would like to do with you is I want to start off with last year's financial statement, and then a quick look at where we are right now, and then take a look at that 4-year possible projection, remembering that budgets are such fluid things that, and as is life right now, that things can change in any moment. So we're going to start off with 2019 at the end of the year. So can you see that? Somebody tell me yes? No? Okay, I'm going to make it bigger. Here we go. Okay, can you see that? Is that clear?
It looks good.
Yes? Perfect. Okay, so I am very cognizant of the fact that I'm the only one right now who does anything with the books, and Vicki gets a monthly report from me, and so do the coordinating committee. But if anybody wants to ask me questions anytime, please do. So last night I did get a question, so I'm going to make one correction right here. Where it says 2018 grant funds from TOTAC, $5,000, that is actually from the Barb Elliot Fund. It's not the $500 above it. So if you are looking at the package, that explanation got stuck into the wrong line. This is correct. Okay, the money adds up. It was the explanation that was wrong. So in 2019, we had monies that were coming in for DUCC, and they ended up transferring through us. So it's a little bit of a mess. We also had funds that we shifted from our savings for website. So it looks really, really good for income from last year that we got $22,000. That's lovely, isn't it? We all like getting money. We don't spend an awful lot of stuff in some areas. So operating costs, it doesn't cost an awful lot. Really, the biggest operating cost that I have in the office area is sending you all your tax receipts in January. That really is the biggest thing that we have. We got the website going up last year, and so we have some extra costs in there. We have an annual fee of $1,084. The $5,650, that was getting the new website and getting it all set up. So that was a sort of a one-time thing. We now use Zoom on a regular basis, and so this is, I've broken that out so you can see that that's available to you. And if you want to use our Zoom account, talk to Eric. He will set that up for you. We had a small amount of money budgeted for regional groups so that if your regional group meets, you can submit your receipts to me and I will pay you your expenses. The DUCC liaison, this is the most best spent money that we have, and this is an honorarium to Eric to be our staff liaison. So, so that is always gone and just well done. And then for Diagonal Connections, we have, you will see the DUCC rep didn't charge us very much for DUCC this year. And registration and diversity subsidies. The coordinating committee decided that we wanted to encourage folk who were new or would represent diversity, because this is what we say that we do. We wanted to encourage them to be able to go, plus registration subsidies for other folk. We set aside $4,000 for each of those, and unfortunately we couldn't find enough people that were available for us or whose schedules would accommodate going for the diversity and new attendees. So we just spent the $8,000 on other people who requested the subsidies. We just felt that this was, I mean, isn't this what we want to do? We want to get ourselves to those places where we can be in DUCC together. This was DUCC income grants. Those were the grants that we had received in 2018 and 2019. And finally, I got to pay them out. So that was good. And that money is shot. DUCC advertising, we did something in, I think it was their book. We had an advertisement in there. This DUCC 2020 was rent for the building for our 2020 meeting. You pay your treasurer an honorarium, and the bank charges were $477. A lot of that is par. A lot of that is par because our par numbers are going up all the time, so it costs a little bit more, but then we have a much better income. We only pay institutional membership to a firm. And so when you look at that, it looks pretty bad. It looks like we were $10,000 short. But if you look at the mess below, if you take out the 2018 funds, we ended up being $1,600 ahead. And it's because the 2018 funds were in a different year's income. So we have lots of money. You can see that at the end of the year, between all of our accounts, a checking account, a small savings account, and 2 GICs, we had $50,000 that was around. So we are in very good shape. At the end of the year, we had 96 members. I'm not able to see that right now. The previous year, we had 93, and 62 of those members were on par. What that translates to right now is that every month, I know for sure I'm going to get just over $800 coming in as donations. which is amazing. And then other people do send checks or do e-transfers. E-transfers is becoming a lot more popular. Are there any questions that you have for the 2019 statements?
Helen, one question that wasn't answered in the chat was, well, first of all, there was one question that was brought up of why does Zoom look like it's less expensive than for others? And that's because it's a shared cost with another organization that Eric does work for. And then the other question that came up was rent for what building?
Okay, so the rent was for, in 2020, we were supposed to be meeting in St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, I believe it was. And so we had to pay the rent for that to hold the space for our 2020 meeting. And it came out of 2019's money.
Okay, and from Christina, is it cheaper to pay for our membership via e-transfers than PAR? And Linda from UK wants to know what does PAR stand for?
Okay, so PAR is pre-authorized remittance, and that is a program that is coordinated by our national church, and it really is just a withdrawal from your bank account every month. And yes, e-transfer does not cost me any service charges to receive it. It may cost you $1, and it costs me $1 when I send you an e-transfer, which is no more or less expensive than mailing you a check. So e-transfer is nice, but I don't know if your church is anything like mine. The people who write checks and do e-transfers don't do it automatically. They tend to forget. So if you think that you might fit into the forget category, the PAR is better because it just does it for you. But I will take e-transfers anytime, any place, and yes, it will cost a little bit less. I'm not seeing the chatter, so I'm appreciating, Vicky, that you're keeping up with the questions for me.
I like telling you what to do every once in a while, Helen.
Yeah. You know how well that works.
Okay, I don't see any other questions right now.
Okay, so that's where we ended up at the end of 2019. So now I am going to just show you where we're at right now. Hang on, get rid of that. And
question,
so this one is to the, yep.
Just in general, would it be possible to send tax receipts by email rather than by postage, by mail?
Well, it is, but it's a lot more work for me right now because then I have to cut right now so every month when that PAR comes out of your bank account, I go in and I add in that I got something for you because you could cancel it at any time. And then at the end of the year, all I have to do is add it up, print it, and send it out. If I have to send it to you electronically, then I have to copy each one of those receipts separately and put it into a separate email. So
Okay.
Is it doable? Yes. Do I want to? Yeah, not for everybody. Not right now, not the way that I have it set up.
Okay, thank you, Helen.
You're welcome. And it's up to you if you add, so Joan, I see, before I share the next one, says you could add a small donation to cover the extra cost of PAR. I mean, really, it costs you, it's 50 cents. That's all it costs. So the 50 cents is not huge by any stretch of the imagination. It just adds up at the end of the year, that's all. Okay, here we go. This one is, so this is to the end of April, which is the last bank statement that I have. So right now, I have received $6,390 in donations or memberships. I'm switching my language to donations or support, and that's because CRA says that a membership is tax deductible, but ours is not. So if I use membership and send you that, and you claim it at some point or other, if they do that audit thing, it's not claimable. And it's because our name as diaconal ministers is not dependent on us being part of paying for this group. we are a diaconal minister, whether we add sponsorship to this or not. So I'm changing my language to meet CRAs. If all I got to the end of the year now was par, I did this, we would still get, it's not me, $13,000 because we have that income coming in. So we're in pretty good shape. And if other folk will add something to the pot, that would be lovely. We received registrations of $10,000 this year for DUCC 2020. And we also received back that rental money for the building last year, plus another $500 we had paid them for an extra room. So oftentimes when we look at these snapshots, it looks really good, but it's a little bit misleading because you're going to see that a whole bunch of that went back out. Postage and stationery is down a little bit at this point. Our Zoom subscription, I've only paid Eric once so far. The next one comes out pretty quick. Hosting, so this is our annual website hosting package. It's already been paid. I have received receipts, I think just from one group this year, but you will notice that in our budget, last year we only had $400 for regional groups. We've got $2,000 in there this year because we want regional groups to meet, and we do not want funding to be a reason why you wouldn't. So we have money. If your regional group meets and has, not liquor, I'm sorry, can't quite do that. But if you have a meal together, we can pay for that. Or if there's another expense, we can do that. So keep that in mind as we go through the year. We have paid, Eric gets his honorarium quarterly. He's had the first one. The second one is coming up pretty quick. National gathering, we had to pay for an extra room that as we were looking at different sizes and stuff like that. And then because we had to cancel it, I had to give back all the registrations. You will notice that the registrations received were 10,462 at the top of your page right now. And I refunded 12,840. And that's because I received some registrations last year. And so it all comes together in this year's thing. So just know that piece. Haven't had anything else for expenses other than the bank charges, and we're right on track with that. This year we decided rather than pay $100 to a firm, which is what we have been doing for our donation membership with them, they asked for increased donations if we could afford it, and the committee decided that we could, so we sent $250. So they need all the help they can get, especially if you know that in Calgary to yesterday and today, there's a big push to get city council to get some bylaws together that are particularly pertinent to this. So far we're looking pretty good. I gave you a comparison to April 30th of last year. We're a little bit further forward than we were last year. And to me, what that is opportunity to fund each other and help each other be where we need to be to do the work of DUCC. And that opportunity is right there for us. Currently, we have, now this is a lie, almost. At the end of April, we had 81 in the whatever day it is. Today is the 14th, and the 14 days since then, I've got 2 more donors. So we're at 83 right now, and last year on April 20th, we were at 85. And you can see that par has increased a little bit, and the checks haven't come in yet. And they always do, but they haven't come in yet. And all of the registrations and things for the Ottawa DUCC 2020 meeting have been returned. So if you have not received yours, or I got it wrong or something, please email me and I will fix it immediately. But I think I've got it all figured out.
So Helen,
do you have any questions?
There was a comment from Deb Kiger that says, I like supporters versus membership because we have 300 plus quote unquote members in DUCC, according to our database, and about 90 of them are financial supporters / donors.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I'm changing my language too, because I also think that we're all in this together, and some people can afford to be a financial supporter and some can't. And we have some very generous donations. Well, we have a lot of generous donations, but the size of them varies. We've got some that do $5 a month on par, and we've got some that do a lot more than that. So whatever you can, it allows those of us that are sort of on the front lines doing that work for you and being that voice for you to know that you are supporting the work that we do.
And of course, if you want to increase your PAR, you just contact the ducktreasurer@gmail.com. Question, are World Diaconal fees still covered by the National Church?
Yes, they are. They
Okay.
pay directly.
Okay. And so you're getting a lot of thank yous and possibly
Okay.
a nomination for Treasurer for Life.
Yeah, no. I'm not sure I want to go quite that far, but thank you. So then
Okay.
go ahead.
No, and now I was going to say, are you going to do the 4-year budget now?
I'm going to do the 4-year budget now. See, never, oops. Oh, I just lost it. Hang on. I hit the wrong button. Hit the wrong button. Let me just find it. That was unfortunate.
So everybody has this 4-year budget in their participation package. And so I encourage you to find that, because we're going to move into breakout rooms when Helen is finished with presenting the 4-year budget.
Okay, sorry people. I hit the wrong button and it just kind of disappeared like crazy. Okay, where are we? 4-year budget. Okay, is that big enough? Can we see that? Vicki, I'm relying on you for this.
Well, I can see it, but I can see it.
Okay.
Your
Yeah, I
200%
think this
was
is
working well before, so why don't
Yeah.
you do that?
Yeah, we can see it.
perfect. All right. So remembering that budgets are fluid things, and it's just really it's a wish list. It's a wish list of what we think we're going to bring in and what we think we're going to spend. And if no money came in, then the expenses would have to be adjusted. If disaster struck and we had to spend more money, then that would have to be changed. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. We changed some of the titlings and we shifted some monies around, and what we did was we went back to that purpose and said, okay, if this is what we said we want to do, where are the funds supporting those things that we want to do? And so that was how we shifted the focus. So if you were to look at the previous 4-year one, which I'm not going to show you, it would look a little bit different. Administration, I've put 400 in there. We have put 400 in there. I think that's a little bit enthusiastic. I believe that that will probably go down. Zoom subscription right now is at €120, and again, that is because we are sharing a subscription with someone else that Eric works with. If we find that that is not sufficient, then as you have seen, we have sufficient funding that we can move things around. We could shift money from the 400 into the 120 very easily without changing numbers at the end. We've had money for clusters and committees for a while. We halved that this time because nobody was charging us for it. So then there's no point in putting that money aside. So that, for example, if the communications committee was meeting and wanted to share some food together or had an expense, then they could have put in a receipt for that, but they never did. So, and I'm just using them as an example, not picking on them, just using as an example. So we moved that amount down. We are being more active with our website right now, and so we know that we have a domain fee that is going to come out, so I'm trying to keep that visible for us. That will have to be paid in 2021 and 2024. It's every 3 years. The website now has an annual hosting fee, so that is in there that wasn't before. As I mentioned when I went through the 2019 information for you, we have put $2,000 aside for regional groups so that you have the funding to do what you need to do to meet as a regional group. And if you want to use our Zoom connection, please, as I say, be in contact with Eric and he will help facilitate that. If we spend $2,000, then coordinating committee has agreed that we'll go back and relook at that again. If somebody else wants it, if you are actually meeting as regional groups, we want to support you. So please know that that is not necessarily a ceiling. We have left the liaison at the same level at this point. We have added, when we have national gatherings, if we are expecting our staff person to go to those, that we need to pay for their expenses. And so we have added on those days when we were anticipating that we would meet as a national gathering, we have added a line in there so we are paying for the expenses of our staff member. This is grade. It's not in yours, but it is in mine because we were going to add $2,000 to the budget for the 2020 expenses, and now we're not going to do it. And we don't know if all of these are going to shift over a year or whatever. We just don't know that piece. But in this for your budget, I would say that we can probably anticipate that $4,000 will go towards national expenses twice within that timeline. We just don't know which year it's going to show up in. Does that make sense? Because we're going to shift things. National gathering subsidy costs, again, the same as we did for DUCC. We want to make funding available for those who cannot afford to go but would like to go. And so we were working, we are offering people opportunities for grants and also working in tandem with, I believe it's the Elliot Trust Fund or Kauffman, I'm sorry, my mind is just not figuring out which one right now, to try and get people there if we possibly can. So that's what that funding is there for. Our DUCC rep, so we have a representative at DUCC, and for a lot of stuff, DUCC pays some of their expenses, but DUCC's in trouble too. And so they have asked for a little bit of help to help with some of those expenses until they get their head wrapped around this. And so we have agreed that some of the funding that would have been used from last year that wasn't used will get carried forward, and we can use that to help support our representative to DUCC at the moment. We will see how that works out, but we want to, I mean, DUCC's important. We feel it's important. DUCC is supposed to be meeting in the Caribbean. We've given the $8,000 for subsidies. We don't know if it'll get used. Darwin for diaconia, it's already been postponed. We don't know when, we don't know how. Dove for Jamaica, again, we would have a representative there. It's been postponed too, and we don't know how any of those things are going to get moved forward. Whether they'll get shifted a year or whether they'll just go to their next meeting, we don't know that yet. So it's in there, but we really have no idea. Your treasurer's honorarium remains the same. I'm anticipating bank charges, etc. will remain the same. And I don't use checks very much anymore, so I can't see there's going to be a huge check cost anywhere in this. Institutional membership, we still had $100 in there, although as I said, we paid out $250 for a firm, and we threw $100 in for marketing. So you can see that sort of averaging out, we're a little bit less by the end of those 4 years if everything got spent or came in the way that we said it would. But we have money in the bank. This is not going to break us if we're a little bit less. And so far we haven't been since I started doing the bookkeeping. We have not lost any money. So I think we're pretty good. So this budget is deliberately focusing on funding for gatherings of DUCC, whether it's regional, international, or national. We're transitioning to donations or supporters instead of memberships. And I never put travel pool in here because travel pool is an in and out. If we go to a meeting and we do travel pool, the money that comes in is the money that goes out. So there's no, I don't put it in the budget because it really is just a figure to play with. Any questions?
So Helen, on the chat that's been going on, there is still some clarification needed or wanted around membership. And so I'm just going to read here. I heard it says, I hope that the declaration is that all diaconal ministers are members of DUCC. Some offer financial support.
That is correct.
So when we think of the body of DUCC, whether or not you support financially the organization of DUCC, you're still considered a member.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's why we wanted to change the language too, because it felt like we were excluding some diaconal members, and we're not. That is not it at all. And this really is a financial support. You are a member if you are a diaconal minister. You are, in fact, I believe that somewhere on the website it says if you think you are,
yes.
If your attitude is diaconal, then you can, you
okay.
can become a friend of DUCC.
Okay, and then there has been, it says, does that all diaconal ministers include those that are not commissioned but consider themselves and their ministry to be diaconal? Absolutely, yes. So there has already been some work being done for the next section of what I was going to ask people to do into the breakout group. So I'm just going to say it and then I'll let you finish up, because I just want to say what's going on in the chat. And it says, can we somehow share our stories of work being written up for mission and service booklet, or however that will be done? Adam Hanley says to the group, regarding DUCC and minutes for mission, would somebody be willing to write up the importance of connection with DOTAC? I can certainly pass it along to Ruth Noble, as our GCO team is always looking for new items for minutes for mission. So now that that's been said out loud, if that somebody says, oh, that is something that I'd be interested in doing, then you can either let me know or put your name forward on this chat, or say so in your small group that's about to happen. And Karen Jaden wonders if we can consider to continue paying the higher membership for a firm going forward, $250. That's the plan. It's $250, right?
I think we had just said for this year, but I can't see that there would be an objection to moving that.
Okay. Okay.
Are you okay if I stop sharing this now? Does everybody have all this information?
Yeah, is there anything more that, just to wrap it up? It's, in the 4-year budget, Karen says it's still at $100.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. So noted, Karen, and we can make that when the coordinating committee comes back together, we'll make that change. Okay. Okay, friends, I have to get to my right screen. As you can see, that our budget is beginning to, not that it hasn't before, but the work that's been done over the last 2 to 3 years, we're striving to have it reflected in the budget. And so those of us in the coordinating committee and also the communications cluster looked at the purpose. That is the purpose that I sent you is exactly off the website. I just copied and pasted it off the website for the email yesterday. And the questions that we explored in our smaller groups were, how are we doing each of these items as they're numbered there? And where is it reflected in our budget? And how does our budget support our priorities? And so we looked at how we create and maintain community and connection among the members. Is we have the MailChimp, we have the website, we have the Facebook group. That's more of a grassroots initiative rather than a formal DUCC coordinated event, but it still happens through there. How do we strengthen diaconal ministries? And and I'm just saying what we said. I'm going to be asking you folks to give your ideas around this as well. But how do we strengthen diaconal ministries and those in diaconal ministry? We have the formal gatherings, national, international, and regional for those regions that do meet. How do we share information? Again, through the MailChimp, the website, and the Facebook page. How do we reflect on issues related to diaconal ministry? The formal gatherings. We are now very much putting funds into place for regional meetings with the hope that the regional meetings can report back and offer pictures for the wider group and to help with the promotion of diaconia. And one thing that we became very aware of, and we've been working on towards the last 2 years, for those of you that have been receiving emails asking you for your participation, is we're realizing that each region really does need a champion or a regional contact so that we can know that the information is getting dispersed and being reflected upon. It says, can we call our communication the DUCC News that uses the DUCC News that uses the server MailChimp? MailChimp is not the name of our publication. Good point. So the DUCC News that goes out by email. Thank you, Kathy. So then we have an advocate for diaconal ministry in all courts of the United Church. That's our staff liaison. And through General Counsel, Jenny Stevens came to our meeting 2 years ago, and Adam Henley is here. They have assisted us by pointing out where diaconal ministers or diaconia is not represented fully in volunteers going forward, or their names being offered for different roles within the wider church. And so every once in a while, the body of DUCC may receive an email saying there's opportunities in the candidacy board, there's opportunities in these different parts of the church. And if you feel so called, please submit your name. Further reflection, theological reflection on diaconal ministry. We do this in our national gatherings, and we're hoping that happens in the regional gatherings as well. And we appoint representatives to the Diaconia World Federation and DUCC, which is Diaconia of the Americas and the Caribbean. And we do that through advertising, again, through the DUCC News, the website, and the Facebook page. Promote interest and involvement in international diaconia. Again, we do that through those 3 other mediums that I've been talking about. And we've been trying to champion for connections, and we're doing that. For DUCC 2019, we created room for bursaries and sent specific invitations to those groups that we felt might be less inclined to go, for whether it was funding reasons or for whether they may not have thought of attending. And so we reached out to several people last spring to encourage them to go to DUCC, and if so, that we would help with their funding. And it was identified, certainly through our work, that their regional connections are still missing, and how do we enliven this? And so we realize that not all regions are meeting. Not all regions feel that they have the ability to meet. And so we're wondering, to the wider group, we're wondering, information back is, what can we do as DUCC, as the national body, that can help support smaller gatherings in which you can get together, you can support and encourage one another, do your theological reflection work, learn history, and do the work, or have connection in between the years that we meet as a national gathering. One thing that we've learned with this Zoom gathering is, I think our largest number probably was the first day. Like, we had 88 people. I forget what the number was in Winnipeg, but I think it was close to 80, if it was just over 80. Like, we certainly have found that people are able and willing to set time aside in their day to attend this type of gathering, but may not have been able to set a week apart or to be able to financially be able to attend a national gathering. So do we want to do something like this again? Is there something, a smaller version of this that we want to do in between the national gatherings? And so I'm going to ask Todd to put us into breakout rooms, again, of 5 people, Todd, as Todd's listening to us. And I'm looking for, I'm doing my timing. I'm going to say 10 minutes, which I know is not a lot of time. But the question that I'm just going to go back and say the question is we're looking for either affirmation, we're looking for both probably, affirmation of where you see the work that is being highlighted or being supported through our budget. Where do you see the purpose being supported by our budget? And where do you see where we could expand the work that we're doing? And then possibly if you yourself would like to participate in the work that you're suggesting, or where you would see how that could happen. And so following this breakout room time, we're going to be moving into a time of nominations. And so then you'll be able to see all the work that's being done by different people across the country. And so affirmations of where you see this work being done, and gaps or suggestions of where we could expand the work being done. And so now I'm going to invite Todd to move us into breakout rooms for 10 minutes. And if you can make notes, either email them to me or do it in your chat room and copy it and then email it to me. I'm going to let Todd, can you just unmute everybody for just a few seconds before we go into the breakout rooms? Are there any critical questions that I haven't been attending to on the chat?
Yeah.
Okay. Not, hello? Okay, not hearing any. I'm going to invite us to go into our
Vicki?
breakout room. Oh, yes. Yeah.
So I've spent some time on the website and I'm still new to the organization, but I cannot find the purpose. I could find our vision, but I can't find the purpose.
Okay, so I'll include that link in the chat, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, the only problem is I think if you go into breakout rooms right now, you may not get it. So let me see if I can.
There
that's
you
what
go.
I'm just a
Yeah,
little worried about.
Michelle has put it in the chat already, Vicki.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Okay. Okay,
That's not
see
the
you
link.
folks in 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I have made notes, the comment written by David about that happened earlier on in the larger chat. For those of you in your smaller groups, just a reminder, if you can email me your comments, that would be greatly appreciated. And I will be taking that information to the coordinating committee's next meeting, which is in June. I'm going to now invite Ted Dodd to give a nominations report. And so I'll just, Todd, if you can, I'll mute myself and let Ted take over.
So can you hear me? So the nominations committee report in the packet was a brief indication of some of our work. The nominating committee was formed earlier this year, and so Vicki and I worked as an interim nominating committee, and then we've recruited folks to take on the role of recruitment for various committees and bodies, and then and also doing orientation and support for those people who volunteer to that, and then to offer our gratitude and thanks for them. So I'm going to go quickly through this because time's passing. And the coordinating committee, Vicki's already introduced everybody who's been on the coordinating committee, and Jen Dresser has also agreed to join us on the coordinating committee. And so thanks to Jen for doing that. And we're looking for one more person. And so we're still on the lookout for that. If you are interested, please email me or be in touch in the chat room, and I'll be in touch. The Communications and Membership Committee is working along nicely with the webminder, Deb Laforette, the newsletter editor, Kathy Toivonen, and the database coordinator, Deborah Kiger. And the card secretary is Kay Dean, and Kent Gibbons is taking that on for Kay while she takes a bit of a sabbatical from that task, while she does some family related things. And the rest of the members are folks from the Maritimes: Eric, David, Laura, Linda, Hubert, and Annika. So thanks to all of them for their work. The Advocacy Committee meets as an issue arises, and that includes Michelle Owens, Catherine Guchar, Ann Naylor, Keith Simmons, Carolyn, when that name's spelled wrong, sorry, Carolyn. There's an N and an E there. Carolyn Bowie-Shank and Eric Tusking. The archives is chaired by Linda Irvin, and as she's joined by Judith Colwell, who's an archivist from the Maritimes, and Kathy Toivonen, and Eric provides liaison to that group. The Digital Images group consists of Kamiko Karpov, Sally Meyer, Linda Gao, and Ann Naylor, with Eric as a liaison. Joining me on the nominations committee are going to be Barbara Luriance and Marcy Gibson. So thanking them for their willingness to serve in this way. The national gathering, we haven't decided how we're going to meet next time. So we will have to do some recruiting around that for folks, whatever we decide for the national gathering and its future. But I did want to thank the folks that worked on this gathering and the 2.0 version of it. And I may have left some people out, but thanks to Vicki for being the coordinator. For those who worked on the theme planning, Tammy, Denise, Barbara, and Kelly, and the local arrangements, including Catherine Guchar, Dorothy Naylor, Janet Neild, Jan Lougheed, and Lori Lowe's. I left your name off, sorry. And Worship, Terry Shador, Jen Dresser, and Heather Robbins. The Barbara Elliot Trust Fund for Innovative Ministries, they've include Susan Butler-Jones and Denise Taylor, and Nan Corrigan has served on this for many years, and she's stepping down at this point. And they asked us to name replacements for Nan, and Ken Delisle and Marilyn Bernard have agreed to go on that committee. So I'll ask at the end of this report to have you affirm that. And the Kauffman Renewal Emergency Fund includes Linda Appleby, Judith Astley, Ellen Baton, I spelled your name wrong too, and Linda Irvin. There's another N between the Y and the T. So they asked that we affirm that slate of people. So maybe, Vicki, we could stop at this point and you could ask, how are we going to do this? Are we just going to affirm this by some magic?
Okay, so this is magic. Okay, so I will take people's attention to the report from the Kauffman Fund, and they, in red in the participation package, the Kauffman Fund folks they ask for affirmation that the present administration committee for the Kauffman Renewal and Energy Fund be on the virtual event agenda for 2020. What they want is to please let us know when and if we're affirmed for another 2 years. So this is the moment in which we will use the negative consensus. And so at that point, I'm going to pull up the chat. I don't have the chat open right in front of me, but if I'm going to give 30 seconds for anybody to say no, that they cannot, or that we're not affirming their leadership for the next 2 years. Okay, so hearing none, the Kauffman Fund Administration Committee of Linda Appleby, Judith Astley, and Ellen Baton Walker with Linda Irvin are affirmed in leadership for the next 2 years. So thank you very much. for
And I
that.
can write them, Vicky, and let them know.
Okay, thank you.
And do you want to affirm the rest of the slate of people above that?
Yes, I'm just, sorry, Ted, just to do this bit of business in front of everybody, but you have added the 2 people in
Yeah.
about the Barb Elliott Trust Fund.
Yes.
Okay, so so then that was a number 3 on their report. They were asking for additional members. And so, yes, we can ask for an affirmation on the remaining slate. Unless, let me look at the chat. Has anybody put their name forward for, did you do the regional or you're doing the regional separately?
I'm doing it separately, yeah.
Okay, yep, great. And, oh, Melanie, so Melanie, again, I'm gonna do this business in front of everybody else. Are you putting your name forward for the coordinating committee for a member at large? Can you unmute yourself if?
If it's needed, I am available.
So
That's
Ted,
great. Thanks, Melanie.
thank you, Melanie.
Awesome.
Okay. So again, with that slate in front of us that Ted has presented, I am going to ask if anybody wants to speak to it. Other than a confirmation, then I'm giving you 30 seconds to say your name. Okay. So I'm just, Melanie, can you unmute yourself? It's been requested that you introduce yourself to the group. And I know you added in here who you are, but for the benefit of the whole group to hear.
Sure. I'm a diaconal candidate in Victoria, British Columbia. I was to be commissioned this year, but it's been put off. I graduated from CCS 2 years ago, and I'm currently working as a supply minister, as well as with the Emmaus community, which is an Anglican United Church community here in Victoria.
Thank you, Melanie.
Melanie, it'd be great to have your gifts on the coordinating committee and also have BC represented. That would be great.
Woo, BC!
Awesome. Michelle Owens asks the group, are there DUCC members who are not alumni? Michelle, can you unmute yourself and clarify your question, please?
Sorry, I'm not asking that. I'm having a side conversation about that came out of our breakout groups about
Okay.
From my perspective, the need that CCS and DUCC have maybe to work on making sure we have good communication and a good relationship with one another because we are separate organizations.
Thank you, Michelle. I feel like the chat's going faster than I can talk or that I can read. So I want to, there's a question here. It says, I agree that, no. Okay, so can somebody clarify the comment about WBFP at St. Steve's and that Sandy Soto also has a diaconal formation?
Okay, so Vicky, what happened is that there was feedback back from one of the groups and it started a thread of conversation about connections between different places. We're multitasking. We probably should pull back on that and just concentrate on what you're trying to make us do.
Okay. Thank you. So I won't worry about it then at the moment. And ooh, I lost a duck. Sorry.
Can I just ask a question about the nominations actually, it's not about nominations, it's about the earlier report. Was Laura Richardson part of the local arrangements in Ottawa? I saw her name on some list at some point, but not this one.
Yes, Laura was. And
Okay,
there are
I'll-
two other
I'll
people
add her
who
to
should be
to
there
my
as
list.
well.
My apologies to Laura.
Okay, Dorothy.
And also two more,
Who else?
Susan Butler Ross, or
Jones.
Susan Butler Jones, and also Susan Toller.
Okay. Thank you for that, Dorothy. Okay.
I'll
So,
make those corrections. My apologies. Those names were on my list and somehow they got off. So my apologies. So are you declaring these this?
I am.
And thank you for those who've stepped up. Okay, I'm going to go on to regional contacts. The regional contacts is a work in progress. I think the coordinating committee, as Helen said in her report, we're trying to encourage regional connections, but there's a bit of it is up in the air because some regions are very active and some regions get together to do tasks, and that's helpful, like the Maritimes and Ottawa found that, the Ottawa area found that out this year working together on the event that we're in now. And so there's going to be some conversation about how that goes and whether people in other areas might want to meet up with some other areas. So Kathy Toivonen came up with a really good suggestion that we pull a meeting together of the folks who've agreed to be regional consultants and that we do some brainstorming about ways that people can meet and whether there might be some work across the geographic boundaries that the church has set.
Ted,
So,
I'm in Shining Waters, but I don't know whether I'm in the drink all by myself or not.
no, well, Marlene's in Shining Waters.
Is she?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is one thing I have to say
Voting
from my
Maltese
experience
is-
with Chinook Winds is that it's been challenging with the regions getting information from the national church and such to have a comprehensive list of who's in each area. I know that we're not alone in that. And so thanks, Sue, for lifting that up because our regions have changed from obviously from our old boundaries. And so thank you if you're Shining Waters. So in the comment, Jody Maltby, Brianne Swan are both in Shining Waters. And Deb Kiger says you don't need to ask GCO for that information. I have it all for you in our database.
Okay, so I'm just going to say that we're in a work in progress trying to get folks to be these regional contacts. If you're in one of the regions that has a blank beside it, we're looking for people to be the regional contacts. And if you're willing to do that, please email me or be in touch in the chat room. So thank you to the folks who have agreed. Linda Irvin from the Pacific Mountain, Denise Davis-Taylor from Northern Spirit, Tammy Allen from Chinook Winds, Jen Dresser from Living Skies, Joan Jarvis from Prairie to Pine, Kathy Douglas from Western Ontario Waterways, Deb Lafayette from Horseshoe Falls, Kathy Toivonen from East Central Ontario, Catherine Gutjahr from Eastern Ontario, Ottawas, Patricia Lisson from Nakahoka, and Linda Gow from Fundy St. Lawrence Dawning Waters, and Lori Crocker from the imaginatively named Region 15. So, thank you to those folks, and we'll be in touch with you shortly about having a Zoom meeting to talk about what it means to be regional contacts and sharing ideas and talking about the boundaries, the geographic boundaries. And special thanks to the over 35 DUCC members who are serving on general council committees or bodies. And that report is either on page 21 or 22, depending on which version of the participant package you're looking at. So thanks to all of them. And Vicki, I think that's enough time that I took on nominations.
Okay. I think Marcy's terminology is
Not that I'm not willing to answer questions, but
okay. So just for clarification going on in the chat box, you have all nations listed as a region. Is it National Indigenous Organization? Like Marcy, can you unmute, or Deb? Unmute
Sure.
so you can clarify your statement.
So my question is, you have all nations listed there. I'm not sure what it refers to. Were you talking about the National Indigenous Organization?
that's the title I was given, sorry.
Okay, so there isn't a region yet. They are dispersed in other regions momentarily. There is a National Indigenous Organization, but it's a little bit different than a region. Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't want to leave them out. But that's
Okay.
very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, everybody. I would like to draw your attention back to the Barbara Elliot Trust Fund for Innovative Ministry. There are 2 questions that we haven't addressed yet. Number 1, possible call for applications in 2020. There are still funds available for granting this year. DUCC might consider a second round of applications for this year as it's been done in the past. The coordinating committee has suggested that we answer that as yes, please do another round. If somebody wants to address that or rather speak against that or raise a concern about that, please unmute your mic now and say so now. Okay, hearing none. The second question is the Barbara Elliot Trust Fund for Innovative Ministry intended only for Canadian ministries? And the answer is yes. We have consulted the DUCC CRA information, and the answer to that is yes. And so that is the answer for that group. So thank you for putting forward those action items. If you have any questions about that number 2 to that team, you can get a hold of Helen Reed and she'll give you some more information. Okay, and now I'd like to conclude our time of business with the archives group. Oh, and Melanie, I'll address that afterwards. So I don't know who's going to speak from the archives group, but
Vicki, it's Linda here, Linda Irvin, I'm going to speak.
Okay.
And Kathy Toyvan is going to speak, as is Eric DUCC. I just want to, I know we're tight for time, so we're going to see what we can do here. I want to say thanks to Karen Douglas and Janet Niet, who were former members of the Archives Committee. And currently it's Kathy Toyvan and Judith Caldwell and myself, as well as staff Eric DUCC. And you'll see that in the nominations report. So thanks to Karen and Janet for their work, and welcome to Kathy and Judith. So Eric is now going to review our mandate for the archives and also materials required for the archives.
Right, thanks, Linda. Greetings, everybody. The Archives Committee came out as a result of the conversations that we've had in the last 2 biennial meetings, that we're starting to lose some of our history because people's personal records of DUCC have not been kept. When they pass on, their family doesn't recognize the importance of them and they're gone. And that's a real loss to our history. So the Archives Committee has recently been struck, and it has 8 points of its mandate, but it's to preserve those documents and then to use that information for people who are doing research, for educating ourselves about our own history and educating the church at whole about what DUCC and Diaconia ministry is about. So it has a pretty broad range. Recently, we've just added a member Judith Colwell to the group, who's an archivist, retired archivist from Maritime Conference. And she's really brought a great definition that I just want to share with you. An archives functions as a written museum of the work, lifestyle, physical, and mental environment and the structure of an organization or of a civilization. So it's very dynamic. Don't think of the archives as something old. It is really something that takes a picture of us over a long period of time. And we're really pleased that Judith has joined the group. She's introduced us to how the archives works too. And if you, and though some of us have done a little bit of research in archives, she's been real helpful in trying to get us a good understanding of how that works. The piece that we want to say particularly is that everybody has a role in contributing to the archives. Every person on this group probably has a resume. And I would ask you before you get out of this week to put it in an envelope and or a box and say, this goes for the DUCC archives. And then you will pass that on. And if you have other documents that relate to DUCC committee minutes, things like that, they are all valuable. And we'd ask you to sort them first, but we'd like you to pass them on, but not yet. With the COVID-19, our conversation with the archives in Winnipeg, which is where we're going to be putting these, storing these documents, has all gone on to a little bit of a pause, and we're not quite ready to receive them yet, but that will come. So, but you can prepare yourselves to collecting your own personal resume and do that. The second things I want to say about the archives is that there's an affiliated group called the Digital Library Group, which grew out of the last annual gathering where people were handing me pictures and others and said, we need to do something with these. And we said, yes, but what do we do with them? And that Digital Library Group and the Archives Group are going to join together in a conversation in the next week just to see how they collaborate. We originally thought this would be something put on online as a Flickr type of record. And that's not what we really need. We really need to be a bit more serious in that. So again, that conversation about how we store these digital images is going to be brought into a conversation with the archivists in Winnipeg, because that's a challenge for us. These archives generally don't like digital pictures and digital images. They like print, they like paper. So we're gonna have to have that conversation with them yet. But that's all I had to say, Linda.
Okay. And I just want to say that there is going to be, some collaboration and overlap on archive documents with CCS, with the DCNS website. And we're going to be, and also our archives are held at the Winnipeg archives. And we're going to try and develop some links between all of these groups, CCS, DCNS website, and the profiles that CCS does as well. So we're going to try and have a link from the Winnipeg archives to all these resources. That would also include Sandy Soto Center as well. So I know we're going through this quickly, but I'm mindful of time. Kathy has an important revelation for us.
Thanks, Linda. So we've agreed that we need to have a history of diaconia, of our association. And some of you may know that we came into existence in 1984. And I agreed to be the person who would write the history, I think in part because I was there in 1984. So I'm a living legend of what went on, I believe. So we have a bit of a project plan. The hope would be that this history would be completed for our next national gathering, which we thought would be 2022. Given that the archives are now closed, I'm not able to access some of the National Church archives that are going to be essential to go through to do some of the history. But some of this can continue on even if the archives aren't open. And so again, because I'm going to be needing minutes of previous meetings of our association, other things that you know might have been happening in your regional groups, I'm going to have to sort through a lot of that. So if you've got some things you think I might be interested in, don't send it to me, but email me first to see if I might already have it. Just to give you a brief idea of what's going to be included in the history, it'll be some of our prehistory of DUCC. So what led up to the decision that we should work together to create an association. Significant decisions that happened at our inaugural gathering, which was at Five Oaks in 1984. Then some of our national gathering decisions throughout the years, how we've changed our structure, changes to our diaconal statement, our PIN, how we've evolved in understanding membership, our communication vehicles, our relationships with the national church and with our international relationships. And then some of the impact of our association, how we've been advocates, how we've given leadership in the United Church and in the wider church and in the wider world. So I have a full document which outlines what is going to go into the history, and it's been approved by the Archives Committee. So I'm happy to receive any questions. And again, if people have things they think might be helpful for me to see, please email me. My email is on the news that I'm the news editor, so my email's there if you don't have it. You can go to your last DUCC news.
One other thing you might want to retain, which was we were reminded about, is that there's a lot of information that's going through emails. So you might also want to set up a file for all those emails that may contain some information. Anyway, do you have any questions? We'll take, Vicki, can we have some time for questions? No?
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Not today.
I understand.
Yes, but there is still some time in this gathering that you can type the questions into the chat box, or you can email. If you don't have Linda's email address, you can email me and I'll forward them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, folks. And archives are exciting. Really, lots of information there.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience and thank you for your grace. I know that's a lot of information in a setting that we're not used to receiving all the business. And so we're doing what we can in these times. Today is Thursday. Many of us have worn black to show our support for Thursdays in Black. At this time, if you want to change your name on your box, a reminder, you hover over your name and right click, or you go up to the ellipses, upper right, 3 dots, and click on that, and rename is one of the options. You can type your name to be whatever you want, and it's been suggested maybe you type your first name and then hashtag Thursdays in Black. I'm seeing if I can see somebody's, yeah, Thursdays in Black. Thursdays in Black, yes, you want to do that. And then in just a moment, I'm going to ask Todd, who is our behind the scenes Zoom master, to take a photo of each of the 3 screens. There are 3 screens. And so he will take a photo of this. He did this yesterday with us being as our colorful selves. And then also today, this can go, we'll be posting these pictures as well. So if your monitor doesn't show you wearing some black, like Carolyn, I don't know if you're wearing black, but the photo that I can see just has your hat. And so if you'd like to adjust your monitor, adjust your name, and then Todd's going to, in just a moment, is going to take screenshots. And I'm just adjusting my name, Todd. Okay, so, and generally we don't smile. So in just a moment, I'm just gonna, Sue, your hand is, there we go. Okay, so Todd's gonna take the photos, and then Todd, if you can just let us know when you're finished.
All done.
Okay, that was a long time. I'm an extrovert. That got old very quickly. Okay, so thank you everybody for taking that moment. And now we're going to move into our closing worship.
So we're going to begin our time of worship with singing. And this is Never Rise Up, Rise Up.
I invite you now to the scripture time. Reading from John 14, 25 to 27. I've told you all this while I'm still here with you. When I'm gone, your new defense counsel, the Holy Spirit, who the Father will send on my behalf, will take over, teaching you everything and keeping all I've said fresh in your minds. The gift I'm leaving you with is peace. My kind of peace, not the mere easing of hostilities that the rest of the world offers. So don't go dropping your bundle or getting all fearful. We sing now, Come and Fill Our Hearts. Heather's mic is muted.
Okay,
Try the other Heather.
Heather R. I think I unmuted. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. Start again.
We just received a message that where did it go? Christine Dudley's at emergency with her partner Jody, who's not well. So we will keep her in our hearts and our minds as we move through the rest of our worship time. We're now going to break into some breakout groups, small breakout groups of 3. In order to maintain that sense of peace, we really need to know who we are and to understand what our calling is in any given moment. In your information packets this week are 5 questions that came from a TEDx talk by Adam Liebsig. The talk was called Know Your Life Purpose in 5 Minutes. And I found this a little fun exercise. He declares that by answering these 5 questions, you will understand what your purpose is, and you will be able to share that purpose succinctly. So the questions are, who are you? What do you do? Who do you do it for? What do you have that they need or want? How are they changed or transformed as a result of the work that you do? So of these 5 questions, only 2 of them are about you. The other questions are about other people, the people that you serve, what they may need, and how they are changed by what you do. So for example, I might describe myself today. Every day is different, but today I might describe myself by saying I help people find the Spirit of God within themselves. So to answer the questions, I am Terry. I turn scripture into picture so that congregations can wonder about the word, so that they can find the Spirit of God within themselves. So I invite you now into breakout groups. You have about 10 minutes to play with this concept in your small group of 3. And when we come back, Jen will lead us in prayer.
So as we prepare to leave our time of gathering in a dispersed diaconal community, we leave going back into all of the various ministries and parts of our lives. And we want to offer a time of centering prayer and silence to send us out. And so I'm going to read again the scripture that Terry read at the beginning as a way of bringing us back and as sending us out. I've told you all this while I'm still here with you, and when I'm gone, your new defense counsel, the Holy Spirit who the Father will send on my behalf, will take over, teaching you everything, keeping all I've said fresh in your minds. The gift I'm leaving you is peace, my kind of peace, not the mere easing of hostilities that the rest of the world offers. So don't go dropping your bundle or getting all fearful. And so we hear Jesus offering the words, the gift that I'm leaving with you is peace, my kind of peace. Don't go dropping your bundle or getting all fearful. After the resurrection, when Jesus appeared to his disciples, he breathed the peace of the Holy Spirit into their troubled spirits. And so we too share that same sense of peace, that same sense of connectedness to the Spirit. And so I invite us to take a few moments in silence, entering into some centering prayer. And I invite you, as you breathe in, to breathe in the peace of Christ, the love of God. And as you breathe out, breathe that peace and that love back into the world around you, wherever you are. So breathing in the peace of Christ, breathing out the peace of Christ. In God's breath, we find rest and peace. In God's breath, we are loved. Come and be. In God's breath, we find rest and peace. In God's breath, we are loved. Go and be. And we're going to sing once more. This is Spirit God, be our breath.
Spirit God, be our breath, be our song, flow through us, bringing strength to the bone. The world seems bitter, defensive, withdrawn. Spirit God, be our song. Patient God, be our breath, like our fear, comfort us. Then we know you are near, we grow more certain, our vision is clear. Spirit God, be our calm, our fear. Loving God, be our voice, be our prayer. Reaching out, joining hands as we share, we seek your guidance with friendship and care. Loving God, be our friend. Spirit God, be our breath, be our song, flow through us, bringing strength to move on, through change, through challenge, we'll greet the new dawn. Spirit God, be our song.
And now, as we end our time together, go into the world with a daring and tender heart. Your heart has its own intelligence. Find the courage to stay in your heart center. Now go back into the world filled with peace, free of fear and anxiety, to live the purpose, to serve God and the world, and to be agents of transformation. And all God's ducks say, may it be so. Amen.
Be so. Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Terry. It was very rich. I just want to remind you all that Vicki will send out a request for feedback about this gathering on Tuesday. So watch for that and get back to her on that. And a special thanks to Ted Robertson for being our tech support for this gathering. If we
Todd
can
Robertson.
shake, or oh, sorry, Todd, if we can give him little fluttering fingers. And to Vicki for chairing this event and the preparation, the huge role you've played. Thank you very much, Vicki. We love it. Lots of responses here. So I don't want to add anything to the beautiful ending that Terry just shared with us. So peace be with you all. It's been good to see you.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.